Hello and welcome to this DC Velocity and Supply Chain Exchange webcast. I'm David Maloney, the Group Editorial Director. Thanks for joining us. Today, we present a panel discussion using AI to help with decision making during uncertain times. The recent economic climate, from tariff wars to global technology shifts, has caused a lot of uncertainty across manufacturing, distribution, and retail supply chains. So today, you will hear from industry peers on the challenges that they are facing. We will discuss how they're automating AI within their supply chains with decision intelligence to gain speed and cost efficiency. Our webcast today is presented by ConverSight, AI-powered augmented analytics tools for the next generation of business leaders. But before we begin our presentation, here are some tips to help you connect and participate in the webcast. Our webcast is designed to be interactive between you and our panel, so later in the program, we'll have a question and answer session to allow you to ask our panelists questions relevant to the topics that we discussed today. Just type your question into the text box on the console, click the Submit Question button, and you can submit them at any time during the webcast. You don't have to wait till the very end to do it, and we'll get to as many of those questions during our presentation as we can. The slides will advance automatically throughout the event. If slides are not advancing, please press the F5 key or Control R on your keyboard to refresh your console. We recommend you disable your pop-up blockers. If you're experiencing any technical problems, please visit our webcast help guide by clicking on the help link that's below the media player. Now, to begin our presentation, I'm pleased to introduce our moderator today. Vlad Becker is a Supply Chain Solutions Consulting Manager at ConverSight. Vlad, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Dave, and I appreciate the introduction. Welcome to the audience. As Dave has mentioned, my name is Vlad Becker. I'm the Supply Chain Solutions Consulting Manager here at ConverSight, and I'll be your panel moderator. Let's go ahead and get you introduced to today's panel. It's my pleasure to first introduce Al Diaz, CEO of West Coast Batteries. Al, why don't you go ahead and tell us about what you're doing here today?
Vlad, thank you so much for inviting me here. So my name's Al. I'm the CEO of West Coast Batteries, as we discussed. And we provide wholesale and distribution for industrial batteries across the United States. Prior to taking over West Coast Batteries, I spent 25 years as a senior executive at companies like Intel and Microsoft, and was at the front edge of this technology revolution that we're in right now. Now that I'm running this business, I'm trying to bring that edge to improve our efficiencies and decision making, especially things around supply chain and just how we operate and execute the business. So I'm a customer of ConverSight and Fishbowl, and just excited to be here and chat about this.
Yeah, thanks, Al. Looking forward to hearing more from you. I'm also thrilled to welcome Hector Garcia, Financial Planning and Analysis Manager at Winston Products. Hector, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Vlad. Thank you for introducing me. As Vlad mentioned, I'm a Financial Planning and Analysis Manager at Winston Products. We're a leading manufacturer of tie-down straps and towing accessories. We cater into automotive, land and garden, and home industries. And like much of our audience, I'm just here balancing demand planning and our overall financial position at Winston Products. We're trying to mitigate risk with this current economy and uncertainty about tariffs. So it's going to be very interesting to dive deep into that today. I'm also a ConverSight customer, and among other business tools, and I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Thank you, Hector. Happy to have you. And finally, rounding out our panel discussion here is ConverSight CEO Ganesh. Ganesh, go ahead and tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Vlad. Hello, everyone. I'm the co-founder and CEO of ConverSight, the only decision intelligence platform which is unifying what is hot today, the AI, analytics, and supply chain. So how do we help, especially in today's ecosystem with all these tariffs and supply chain challenges, we all need to make better decisions, how AI can help those decisions. I've been traveling to a lot of our current customers like manufacturing companies, distributors, retailers across the globe, and looking forward to share and learn some of those ideas and how the leaders are handling the current situation and how ConverSight as a partner can help in this situation. Thank you, Al. Thank you, Vlad.
Yeah, fantastic. Definitely looking to hearing more from you, Ganesh. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into our first discussion point. Hector, Al, Ganesh, this question's for each of you. Starting with Hector, how is the role of AI in your business helping you understand the risks and opportunities in your supply chain today?
Yeah, it's a very good question, Vlad. For us, AI has become a very critical tool in managing both risk and opportunity, especially given that our manufacturing is done overseas and we import to the US. We rely on AI to help us predict disruptions, from supplier delays to geopolitical events like we're seeing now, and predicting the changes in tariffs and just kind of help us mitigate those risks. AI really allow us to move us quickly, and whether that means switching suppliers, adjusting inventory flow, or if we need to reroute shipments. It has been very opportunistic, or on the opportunity side, we also identify costs, efficiencies, and we honestly try to highlight demand patterns as much as we can with using AI. That's one of the biggest advantages that we have found. And again, this just helps us shift our production strategy when we need to. So again, it's not just about reacting problems, but it's also trying to stay ahead and planning smarter.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's how do you stay proactive instead of being reactive in this environment? Absolutely. Al, do you have anything to add to that point?
Yeah, I would say, so Hector brought up a lot of things here, which I'm aligned with. And the challenge that all of us have, and I'm sure all of the audience has, is if we're fortunate, we have a ton of systems in place that are generating a lot of data. And just having data is great, but what of that pieces of data do you actually act on? And that's the challenge. So when I think about use of artificial intelligence tools, and there's a broad spectrum, but the biggest thing is, what do we do today to act on all this data and information that we have, right? A lot of times, if you don't have the good insight, you kind of find issues by accident. Oh, I was scrolling through this report and I saw this one thing. How do you change things from accident and somebody just being curious to an actual process that you can act on daily? Imagine a tool that says, hey, focus on these 3 things today, you have a problem, right? Or here's these 3 strengths, go build on this. So that's what this value brings. The ability to find signal in all of that noise.
Yeah, appreciate that, Al. Ganesh, I see you nodding over there. Anything to add?
Yeah, certainly. So, in my role, I can definitely bring in what I'm hearing from some of our customers. Al and Hector covered some of that. See, when I came from the world where large enterprises can have army of people in the supply chain, in the data analytics, create a lot of insights. But then think about companies where we are today working with a lot of small and mid-market companies, where AI can lend a helping hand as an analyst, as a demand planner, as a report writer, to analyze all those data, convert that into insights. I always connect this to a normal world. Like today, we are not waiting for the new printed newspaper anymore. The news is coming to us every moment. And how can we do that in our supply chain today? Can we employ the AI and connect to the data and get that? And time is of an essence right now, right? Especially right now with all the tariff I know we are going to talk about. We need to make a lot of decisions in terms of how much to keep in our inventory, what to buy, from whom to buy, what's the real impact on our profitability. A lot of things. And we don't need to do it all alone. We don't need to do it just with a bunch of Excels and reports. AI is here. We can take. This is the time the AI's value will be felt in every one of our companies.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that's kind of what I hear from customers today. And it's really resonating what you guys are saying. It's really all about efficiency. And again, how do we get ahead of what our data is telling us instead of being reactive to the data after the fact, right? So without further ado, let's go ahead and move on to the next question. Hector, this one is for you. What kind of visibility do you need in order to protect margins during these turbulent times that we're seeing today?
Yeah, it's an excellent question, Vlad. I think the points that I want to bring up here is basically margin. There are 4 points. Margin protection really it relies on 4 things. The upstream, which is basically your supplier capacity, your risk exposure, and tariffs and material shortages and all that. In transit, anything that is that we're live tracking on the water, predicting alerts of potential delays, port strikes, all of that. Landed cost. Landed cost is also having visibility of real-time view of those total cost per SKU. It's tremendous. It's very helpful as things continue to change. And then downstream, which is basically your demand, your demand tracking, so we can avoid any excess inventory or stock out. So I'm going to do a quick deep dive on those 4 points. So when we start to talk about upstream, so we need to know more than just who our suppliers are, in essence. We need insight into their capacity, into their raw material sourcing, and even the other supplier relationships that they have. If we have 1 or 2 suppliers that are tier 2 suppliers in Asia that could be impacted by, tariffs or a regulatory shift, we want to make sure that this doesn't hit our product line. And if it does, can we reroute? Can we move quickly and to anticipate those changes? So tools like AI, like ConverSight, can help us to determine, okay, these are the amount of lead times to shift between one factory to another. In transit, the second point. So where our goods are in transit, delays and unexpected fees can always happen. So having a live tracking demand and with predictive analytics that it's able to, for example, if a port delay is forecasted due to weather or an port strike, can we understand our risk with these delays? And then real-time view of landed costs. If we can also have, on our third point, the real-time view of landed cost, and not just base cost of goods, but any duties, freight, customs clearance, warehousing, all of those costs that can fluctuate constantly, that are variable costs. AI is able to help us to determine, okay, this is what you can expect and mitigate those risks in case those things change. And the 4th point, to finalize, the downstream, the demand, having visibility. This is something we use every day when we are trying to analyze, okay, do we have any overestimated demand? Are we stuck with excess inventory? Can we continue to move our excess inventory, or otherwise have we underestimated and we have on the other hand, we have stockouts or lost sales because of stockouts? Can we mitigate all of those by having an AI tool like I'll just mention, where we can put those on the top of our analysis and say, okay, these are the top 5 SKUs, this is the top 10 SKUs excess, or the SKUs that we need to order, so we can make sure that we are not having excess or stockouts. So with full visibility, we can take action before our margin takes a hit. So I will say those are the 4 components that I will say that AI has helped us the most. So catching these issues early has helped us tremendously for our forward-looking plan. So.
Yeah, excellent. I appreciate that context, Hector. Thank you so much. The next question we have is for Al. Al, how have recent tariff shifts affected your supply chain, and how quickly have you been able to respond to those?
Yeah, so thanks. For quick context, so what we do is we're a wholesale distribution company, right, for a very specific product, and we represent and we sell product mainly from one manufacturer. And it drives a lot of our business. So lots of different product lines from one manufacturer, mainly US, but some international. So I have a little different level of complexity than being a manufacturer itself, right? So first thing, price, right? As a wholesale distribution, if you're in retail and if you're not dealing with 50, 60, 70, 80% gross profit margins that you can absorb or really think through what's going on. When you're dealing in the 15, 16, 13, 10% margin range, gross profit, you can't play. So this quick reaction is really important as to what hits your costs. So the first thing and first shifts was pretty easy because the manufacturer said, yep, your prices are going up by this based on what's going on, and that gets passed through to our customers who pass it through to their customers. So that's a very quick hit, no-brainer. And that you don't need AI for that. If your price list changes, you have to change your prices. Now, from the data and analysis and how to help really think things through, it comes to the second piece. Because we're not just dealing with tariffs, we're all dealing with a very high cost of capital, right? So if you're paying a 9.5% interest rate from your credit line to buy for your working capital, to work your inventory, and you have a 10 to 12% margin business, there is zero room for error in how you manage your inventory. So understanding the demand and the demand impacts. So for me, our prices are going up tomorrow based on everything that's going on. Prices are going up tomorrow. The biggest question that I have is how does that impact demand? How did that impact demand historically in 2008? What happened in 2020? What happened depending on how long your business is, and how can I use that to model what I think could happen going forward? Because the challenge for all of us on this call, I believe, is this is fairly unprecedented times from an economic perspective. What allegory can you come up with to think through what your demand scenario is? So when we look at the demand and our monthly demand planning forecast that we work with ConverSight, right? How's that going to be impacted? And then we can adjust because you have zero room for inventory issues. And that's all driven by what's my demand, what's my current inventory, how do I very quickly adjust and adapt my purchase orders and to move forward. So as we're thinking through it, when we implemented the solution and really drove our first forecast, the first thing it was, we were over ordering based on previous demand. So we were able to immediately push out all of the inventory to when we needed it. That was the first big win. Second big win is how do we start working down any excess inventory? And the third is really be set up for very quick reaction to the demand signals with our purchasing to make it move forward. And you can only do that if you have the right visibility and you have the right modeling, and you can even do the what if statement. So the flexibility of an AI solution that you can query and ask questions and be curious with in an easy way versus having 2 to 3 weeks to come back for an answer because you sent it to your IT team to come up with some SQL queries to go do this, do that, and the other, give you a fancy report. If you can query your tool right now, you can take your response time from 1 to 2 weeks down to minutes. And instead of 5 to 10 individuals and layers of change orders and tickets to go make something happen, you can query through a chatbot your data to come up with the answers, or at least the start of an answer, so that you can react in an immediate way. So that's kind of how we've been using the tool, understanding our demand, really managing our purchasing, because there's zero room for error here. We're in a high risk moment. And then, as demand pans out with our process, we'll be able to get into our flow state, but we'll be able to look at it as what's going on looking forward versus just statistical analysis for what happened historically.
Yeah, absolutely. You brought up a really good point, right? The first way we tackle these impacts is walking that fine line between not having too much inventory and not having shortages, right? How do we balance that inventory? And that really starts with the accurate demand planning, right? So thank you for that perspective. I definitely appreciate that.
It's the number one thing. It's if you don't understand your demand signal, and you don't have the ability to look forward and do some what if analysis with that demand signal. Hey, what do I do if demand drops by 30%? We don't know. What do we do if demand stays the same or increases? Are we okay? And then what are our costs precipitating from that based on the different world that we live in now from our global supply chains? Absolutely. So it's to me, I lead with that demand signal. That demand signal is everything, because that's what drives all your decisions. Because there's zero room for error on inventory.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Al. Let's move on to the next question here. So this one is for Ganesh. Ganesh, tell us why decision intelligence versus traditional analytics is the right fit for this moment in today's global supply chain.
Yeah, thank you. Right. I think the perspective was already given, when, Hector started with all the four different information, where we need to analyze. So that means ideally we need data from multiple systems or multiple areas, functional areas. And then what Al was talking about the time to insights and recommendations and actions, where you don't have next 4 weeks to go figure this out. How do you quickly do it? I think that is where the term, the decision intelligence, is coming from, the traditional analytics or the so-called reports, right? So traditionally we have, one system to do all the reporting and another software we may do all the data integration, all that. And then most of the time, all these are technically heavy platforms. So you need some technical people to do this. Compared to that, where this, in the industry is moving is more towards decision intelligence, where we are bringing that old BI and with AI, so that automation is naturally coming. So that means whatever a technical person need to do, the data integration, the data aggregation, data science, to do the forecasting, for example, it's all possible within decision intelligence. So number one is you are hiring one AI employee to do multiple roles. Traditionally, we used to have a data engineer, data scientist, a BI developer, and then a functional analyst. Now 4 in 1, that's number one. So obviously that means it's cost efficient. That means it's time to value. You're not waiting for 4 people to coordinate with a project manager to deliver something. In the next 4 weeks, 8 weeks, how can I deliver my end-to-end supply chain visibility and demand forecasting and supply planning? That's mind-blowing. Like, we couldn't think about like that in like 4 or 5 years back, right? So that to me very big. And while that give you the advantage on cost and time and all those, but that's very much relevant today, right? Like even last week when we were talking to a customer, they suddenly want, okay, Ganesh, we have all the data here, our forecast and everything. We have this, the country-wise, the tariff and all that. And there are also alternate suppliers for them. Give us a recommendation, how much we need to stock up, number one. And number two, how much we need to source from different country, and what's the impact, right? So, we may already hear like, oh, it's 125%, but that 125% doesn't mean we are going to have 125% increase in price, right? So when we bring that raw material or a product in our product mix, it's a different. And also, what's the impact? Is it going to impact my top 10 customers, top 20 customers? Is it going to impact customers where I have hefty margin? Or is it going to impact where I already have low margin and bleeding, and it's going to even more create it? That's a lot of decisions to be made, and these are time critical decisions. That's why we need decision intelligence, and that's what we are doing.
Yeah, definitely appreciate that perspective, Ganesh. Al, I saw you trying to chime in there for a second. I wanted to go ahead and respond.
Yeah, Ganesh touched a nerve here. I was smiling when I was hearing his discussion on traditional analytics versus intelligence. And so, look, I used to, as a VP at Intel, I'd have an organization where I had 400 or 500 people. I'd go into meetings and I would ask questions, right? And I would ask questions saying, hey, what would happen if our demand dropped by 30%? And what would we have to do here? What's what's the inventory position, what's this, what's that, what's the other, and then a team would go off, and you'd rely on the person with either the best Excel skills, or they would find somebody in the IT group, or they would work with somebody to come up with the data set, create a nice Power BI report, create a nice PowerPoint to come up and say, hey, here's your answer. So that was what I was running at. Now, in my company, I don't want to generate that activity for my employees. I want them to focus on driving and selling and executing the business, not answering my questions. If I can go log into a system and ask the question and query it myself and not spend 4 hours formatting my Excel spreadsheet to do a pivot table, which I can't remember how to do because I haven't had to do one in 20 years, right? It changes completely how a business operates, where their decision makers don't have to task teams to come up with data or reports. So for you to make a decision, you can, when you have that question, immediately answer it within several minutes versus hours, weeks, and you're also reducing the overhead you're putting on the team because they need time to execute the changes and actually deliver real results versus coming up with reports and data. And that is the complete life-changing and business-changing that experience that this technology that we're at the start of, by the way, that's going to bring to us. I go straight and I query myself, and it's like it's a minutes versus weeks. So
yeah, no, I think this is a perfect transition into our next question. And why don't you go ahead and respond to this question here? What's one insight that you recently received from your data, while querying that data and using AI, like ConverSight, and what would have been impossible for you to do before having this type of technology in your business?
So the previous business I ran was a $25 billion global business. I went and I became owner and CEO of a company that does much less than that. And the system that I had before, that the previous owners had, was a whiteboard in the main office that tracked their inventory. Okay, so when I first took on the business, there was zero technology in place. So I quickly implemented, Fishbowl for inventory management. And I was like, okay, I got to get some value out of this data. And we started implementing ConverSight. Prior to doing that, I still had to order, and I still had to manage the inventory and get the team to say, hey, what do we need? What do we have? I thought that the previous business leaders had run their business at, I was like, it seems like 2 to 3 times more working capital than they really need, but I don't know. So I'm going to look at some history, and I did a back of the envelope calculation. I created an Excel spreadsheet. I placed a bunch of orders, and I put it in. When we finally implemented ConverSight on top of Fishbowl, and we finally had the right data in place, and the team looked at statistical forecasts, came up with what the demand was, and we had a real demand signal, and we had the real visibility to exactly the inventory that was there. The number one piece of data that we had was what my excess inventory level was, which was, by the way, we were carrying about half the amount of inventory before, and we were still carrying 50% more inventory than we needed.
Wow.
Yeah.
So found that, and we finally figured out and had it all implemented 6 weeks ago. And because you now have visibility and clarity, which is great, I'm like, oh, now I can act. And with the system in place, it's like, okay, here's your demand, here's your excess inventory, here's our purchase order recommendations. Execute on the recommendations. Man, we've been able to drive that. The excess inventory has been driven down by half. And again, wasn't doing it wasn't as poor as the previous regime, but when you put in the right systems, it can give you the right signal from the noise and give you actionable things to do. You can very quickly manage yourself from a not so good position to a much better one. So yeah, that's the number one thing that we've done over the past 6 weeks is we've reduced our excess inventory by half. We've set our purchase orders up based on how we need to do it. And I'm very excited about our cash position moving forward. And the reality is demand will change because prices are going up. And it's not just about my price, it's about the entire economy and how will that impact the overall business. And when we start seeing that, I'll be able to very quickly adjust what we do to make sure we don't put ourselves in a bad cash position. When I say cash position, I mean inventory. All inventory is cash sitting on the shelf, right? And cash is expensive. So yeah, that was the number one thing. So it's literally life-changing. And all the employees of the business, jaws dropped, eyes wide open, this is the greatest thing ever. And back to my previous statement, like Ganesh was talking, I know I'm rambling a little bit, but hopefully other people can relate. The team had not been used to this level of technology before and this level of insight. And because it's not a, because it's more of a decision-making tool, and with AI, it helps it make it easy for people who don't have a ton of Excel or SQL skill set, right? Everybody can use it to help make decisions. It's not a skilling discussion. The quality of your decisions is not how good your coding is. The quality of your decisions is based on the data and accuracy of the tool, right? So it's again, life-changing, especially in the world of small business. We don't have resources.
I mean, being able to cut inventory in half and maintain sales velocity, that's an impressive in itself, right?
Grow sales, manage your inventory well. It's a beautiful cash position that you put yourself in if you have the data, and that data translates very easily into action, which is what the tools that we put in place do. Demand forecast, recommended purchase orders, execute your recommended purchase orders, refreshes, and you're good. It's a life-changing experience for the team.
Thanks for that, Al. Appreciate that color. Thank you so much. The final question we have here is for Hector. Hector, what's the value of seeing financial, sourcing, and demand data all unified under a single platform, especially in today's volatile environment?
Well, it's incredibly valuable. I mean, what Al was saying and what Ganesh was saying, it all comes down to this, right? It's the unifying of data. I'm gonna just tell you a quick story. Like a procurement team that we have internally here in our company found lower unit prices for a specific supplier. It looks great in theory and in isolation, but then when you start modeling the impact of shipping costs, tariffs, lead times, you could end up paying more in total, right? So all of these things, this has happened in the past for us. So now with everything integrated, we can simulate the full impact of this cost, the full impact of what, for example, what Al was saying, demand. What happens if 10% of demand goes down in the country nationally just because of what's going on with the tariffs, as a result of the tariffs? So can we quickly shift our sourcing to avoid a potential tariff without hurting our customer delivery, our demand, our cash position? These aren't just basically operational questions. These are strategic levers that AI has enabled as a platform to help us explore in real time. So I think in short, unified data is just, it doesn't just improve efficiency. I think this transforms and how we make decisions, making smarter decisions, being more proactive. And this kind of environment that we have right now, and with everything, I mean, I hate using the T word now, but the tariffs and everything that's going on right now, this kind of visibility is just give us that coordination and proactivity that we're looking for. So it seriously gives us a competitive advantage having all of this data integrated in one.
That's really great to hear, Hector. So with that in mind, I do want to go ahead and jump into an actual demonstration of ConverSight to see how it's helping countless customers as well as the two of you here on the call. So let me go ahead and share my screen here, team. All right. So I'd like to welcome the audience into our first glimpse of the ConverSight platform. And as a reminder, ConverSight is the only decision intelligence company that's unifying not just AI and analytics, but also supply chain, all under one umbrella. Now, what does that mean, right? At ConverSight, we're bringing in all of your different business data. For example, your ERP data, if you have a warehouse management system, maybe you have a Shopify or other channel data. Those are just a few examples of some of the data sources that we're able to pull in. And once we have that data, we're able to display it across the platform that has been built on AI and machine learning workflows, as well as those key decision intelligence tools that are really helping us really stay fast and efficient in our decision making, just like Al and Hector brought up earlier during the panel discussion. So let's go ahead and see that in action, right? One of our core pillars of the ConverSight solution is providing users with that critical supply chain visibility around their supply chain network, right? And that starts off with not only providing details around your sales metrics, your sales order details and operations, but also analyzing spend analysis, right? And that's critical in today's environment. So if we take a look at our spend analysis storyboard here, we're displaying some really valuable information that our users are starting to utilize around their spend metrics, around their spend habits, what are they allocating their cash flow towards, and we're able to start seeing what are those different patterns that are going to be occurring throughout the year based on our historical spend patterns that we've seen in the past, right? So now teams are able to get that visibility and be able to see how have past trends occurred and what can we potentially start planning for in the future when it relates to actually investing our cash, right? And we're seeing that across different periods, not only on a quarterly, yearly, monthly, but also a weekly level, right? And getting as granular as who are we spending our dollars with? What are those top vendors that we are seeing investment with? What are those classes and categories that are really driving much of our spend? And even getting down to the ground floor where we're seeing what are the different vendors we're working with and what are we buying with them, right? So now we're able to get that holistic visibility into, hey, maybe I have a vendor that we're experiencing significant cost increases with. Maybe I want to go ahead and see, can I buy that same item with a different vendor where they're not as impacted by tariff or the current market conditions? Now, from there, we also want to be able to see what is that outstanding supply? What do we have still on order? And what can we potentially do with that product to help achieve our goals of minimizing inventory while maintaining those sales volumes that we need in driving our business. So our outstanding supply storyboard shows us that visibility across open POs, late POs. What are those operational metrics that are helping us determine what are the POs arriving today, this month, right? And allowing us to plan for those scenarios. Now, as we scroll down, we're also able to get really unified visibility across our different purchase orders, right? Everything that's open, we're able to go ahead and see on one screen. Who are those vendors? What are those POs and what is on those POs? How much have we ordered and how much have we received so far? And from there, we're able to go ahead and actually see what are the potential late purchase orders, right? So seeing everything end to end in terms of what is that inbound position looking like allows us to then start determining, hey, do I have any potential low-hanging fruit for, maybe canceling some POs, limiting some of those at-risk vendors for tariff impact, and being able to really make sure that we're reallocating our funds to the areas that are going to really drive margin. Now, from there, we also have that same level of visibility into our inventory details. So we know our spend, we know kind of our outbound cash flow, we know what's coming in into our warehouse, but how do we tie all that together to give us that unified view of our current inventory position? So through our inventory details storyboard, we're able to see exactly what's on hand, on order, potentially allocated or committed to future sales orders. as well as detail across our different locations, our different items around what do I have on hand? What is that cost of inventory? What is that potential inbound and outbound position across that inventory? So in real time, we're able to have visibility into exactly what our inventory position is across the different nodes of our supply chain. Now, from here, what if I have a question about my inventory, right? Perhaps I'm evaluating an item and I'm curious, hey, what have the previous sales been for this item? Well, that's where ConverSight's AI assistant, Athena, comes into play. So on the bottom right-hand corner here, you might have noticed this button. If I click on that button, we can see ConverSight's full-time employee in action. This is where we can come in and, as Al mentioned, ask natural language questions around our business data and have the AI do the heavy lifting for us. We don't have to rely on IT teams or business analysts to get us the responses we need to the questions we have around our data. We can just come in and simply type that question into Athena and have her answer it for us. So maybe as I'm evaluating this inventory detail storyboard, I'm curious about, what are my top 20 highest revenue items? And maybe I'm also curious about what those were for last month and the unit cost and price of those items. So just by simply typing that question, again, Athena is going to help me get that insight that I need into that data on the fly, right? Within seconds, I was able to see what are those top 20 questions, what are the different prices that I'm paying to my vendors for those items, and what is that average price. From there, making decisions around my margin is easy, right? It's saving me money and giving us visibility into those key inventory positions and those key items within those inventory positions. Now, Al talked quite a bit about demand signals, right? And that is the other pillar of the ConverSight platform, providing us with AI-generated forecasts using those machine learning algorithms that before we weren't really able to get access to. Usually when we talk about demand forecasting, we see teams using Excel sheets. We see ERPs with outdated methodologies, like just using simple moving averages or just a linear regression model over the previous year. Well, at ConverSight, we're able to take a variety of different algorithms, layer them on top of each other, and provide really sophisticated visibility into that true demand volume that we can anticipate. So through ConverSight, we're able to see what are all those different past demand volumes, what have our sales been, and also start seeing what are those future forecasted volumes going to look like, and how do they compare to past years? What is that demand trend? Are we seeing items on a downtrend or an uptrend, and where do we need to reallocate resources to continue driving that demand? Now, this is happening with a variety of different data points all in one, right? We're looking at historical data. We're looking at seasonality trends, peaks and valleys in our business. Are there potentially outliers in our business that we need to account for from past sales when we're doing this type of level of demand planning? All of that is happening through ConverSight's AI all at once, right? Really saving our teams quite a bit of time from manually forecasting their demand, using all these different sources of information from different disparate systems, really helping customers unify that and get that visibility first thing on a Monday instead of waiting midweek until we start determining what can we potentially adjust our forecast to, right? And so once the AI actually develops this forecast, we let our teams come in and actually start making tweaks to that forecast as well, right? Nobody knows your data and your business better than you do. So we do have the ability to actually come in, adjust these values, and utilize some of that tribal knowledge we have in our business in order to continuously improve that demand planning motion. Now, all of that comes together under the supply chain visibility pillar, the demand planning pillar. And once we establish that demand forecast, and this really speaks volumes to how quickly ConverSight is able to react to customer needs. You know, we're here talking about tariffs and volatility. Well, we've been hearing a lot of the same over the past month or two from our customers. And that's where ConverSight has been able to bring forward a product that allows customers to really see the impact of rising costs on their business while unifying all those different other parameters that we spoke about today, right? So on this demand forecast screen we see here, we're actually taking that demand forecast we saw and bringing in potential cost impacts and price impacts of tariffs on our forward-looking forecast. So we can see what that original forecast has been across our supply chain network, across our business. But with rising costs, you know, what are the potential cost impacts on our COGS, right? Do we need to make any sort of adjustments to our prices? And what is that potential revised forecasted revenue going to look like, right? And of course, the main aspect of this is what is the impact on margin, right? How are we going to plan for margin volatility within our business based on those trends? And that's where we're providing the scenario planning platform as well, right? So looking at this cost increase impact details report, we're able to see on an item level, what have the unit costs been? What are the different prices we're charging? Are we seeing cost increases? What are those cost increases? And then we're able to come in and start adjusting the price increase percentages that we want to potentially implement. Once we do that, we can see that trickle down view of what is that price increase going to be on my specific item margin. How does that drive the revised forecasted revenue for that item? And of course, how does that all roll back up into our business with a summary view, giving us visibility into those new potential revenue figures, and equally as important, the COGS associated with those rising costs. So giving us that scenario planning capability to really drive and maintain margins within our business during these quite volatile times that we see in the economy. Now that all finally comes together through our final decision intelligence pillar, and that's around our supply planning. And that's where we really see recommended PO shine. Our recommended purchase storyboard takes all those aspects that we've covered in the past 10, 15 minutes or so, our inventory visibility, our inbound and outbound position for that inventory. What is our demand signal and what is our future demand looking like based on those signals? And we're able to bring all of that together to start actually driving recommendations for what you need to purchase and when you need to purchase it. So through the storyboard, we're getting really critical visibility into what are those items that are potentially at risk of stocking out and seeing shortages in the near term, right? So looking at this report as an example, recommended purchases in the next 7 days. This is where ConverSight is telling our buying teams what they actually need to focus on buying and from who for the specific week we're working in, right? So they come in Monday morning and right away they're able to check the storyboard and see, okay, for this week, Efficient Building Solution as our vendor, we need to really buy 12 units of our retardant wires, right? It's telling us when do we need to buy those items, what quantities do we need to buy those items, and what are the different coverage points that we're going to be able to see once we buy those items. Now, if we want to get into more detail around what's driving that decision, we can scroll down to an actual detailed view that's providing us visibility into all those different signals that are driving that recommendation, right? So again, what is that purchase date? What is that recommended quantity? We're looking at MOQs and other key supplier metrics such as lead times and on time and in full rates. That's critical, right? Because when we have suppliers that are dealing with volatility, we're going to see volatility within lead times. And historically, if we see a supplier provide us with 4-week lead times on a consistent basis, but guess what? Over the past 2-3 months, it's been more like 8 weeks. Well, the system picks up on those trends and actually begins to recommend that you purchase this product with this supplier earlier. This really ensures that just-in-time delivery across the different points of your supply chain and make sure that you are never in a stockout position, achieving those service levels and continuing to drive revenue. I want to stop here, team, and really give the audience an opportunity to ask some questions with the last 10 minutes we have here together. So it looks like we have a few questions coming in. The first one is from Jacob Hoffner, and he's asking, are you using built-in house agents trained on internal data? Is the model directly integrated into your ERP? That's a great question for Ganesh. Ganesh, do you want to answer that question?
Yeah, the answer is yes. So we are using the agents on the in-house data, and not necessarily just within the ERP data. Like it's ERP. Sometimes you are bringing some data in an Excel, for example, if some vendor lead time or some of the safety stock, some of these not in ERP, we can actually bring in. So ConverSight work in tandem on top of the ERP. So ERP, some CRM data, we bring that data in and augment that with some of the data feed, either through Excel or within ConverSight. And then that's a foundation, then we take that forward. Yes, the agents are trained mostly on internal data, supply chain data, and it is secured, and it's not really, you're not using an OpenAI ChatGPT world and compromising data. That's very critical in data security as well, that we are using an in-house agent to talk to that data.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you for the color there, Ganesh. We do have another question here, several more questions. Please list the tools and technologies. Please list the tools and technologies involved in the decision intelligence in real time, near real-time reports and dashboards that are available. So I think this is around, what is ConverSight offering as kind of a day one solution? Ganesh, anything you want to say to respond to that question?
Yeah, as earlier we mentioned, the ConverSight is an unified end-to-end platform. So you don't need any other software other than ConverSight. So ConverSight will provide different components to the cloud. You can even bring your cloud or ConverSight's cloud, the database or a data lake software. We have the data engineering, data sourcing, data engineering, data aggregation, data science, the visualization, and then the LLM or a foundation model to talk to the data. And then data collaboration, especially sending emails and alerts and other stuff. So no other software is needed apart from ConverSight. We provide end-to-end as one bundle. And we have options to consume real-time data or scheduled data like an hour, every 2 hours, or every nightly, depends on the process. And we do have capability to write recommended purchase orders and work orders, transfer orders within to the ERP as well. So yeah, that's how it works. Real-time, near real-time is all possible within the technology. It's just that different package, what ERP you are using. If that ERP is capable of performing in real time, that's the catch. We do it. We have seen a lot of them running every 3 hours, every 4 hours, a lot more now.
We appreciate that. We have another question here for Hector now. Hector, how are you understanding the impact of tariffs, and how are you handling and tracking those tariff impacts? What's next for you in that arena with AI?
Yeah, so I can quickly hit on that. as I have been mentioning, tariffs are a moving target. So the good thing by using AI is that we can build models that we can simulate the impact of different tariff scenarios. So our landed cost, we can see them in real time. We can see how they can shift with the increase in tariffs and multiple reroutes. So again, that includes duties, shipping, and obviously ultimately pricing, so that we have to pass down to the customers. So the good thing about AI is that this offers us visibility to help us make faster decisions. So whether that's again adjusting the sourcing strategies or renegotiating contracts or pricing with our customers, this is the next step for us. Is basically what Al was saying, potentially increasing our prices next, and using that model for future occasions and future tariff changes, as we know that this is going to continue to move and change as we keep hearing more in the news. So
yeah, thank you for that. Al, anything to add to Hector's point?
No, I think we covered it well earlier too, and I'll just go back to my position on, to me, it's all about understanding demand, and it's unpredictable right now. Every CEO I've met with, nobody can say, look, normally I can say here's scenario 1, scenario 2, scenario 3. We kind of can't see clearly scenarios that we would bet our businesses on. So having the ability to understand what's going on with demand, with all the macroeconomic issues that are going on, it's going to be incredibly helpful in how to drive and act.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We have one final question here, and this one is for Ganesh. Ganesh, how hard is it to get something like this started? Can we realistically expect AI in our business quickly enough to react to these tariff issues that are happening here today?
Yeah, certainly. I think we are not starting from zero here. Like, we already have these models up and running for a number of supply chain companies. So we have that, right? So all we need is identify where the data is, which ERP it is. So how quickly we can get that data. That's, I would say, that starting point. And then you are talking about days to week. And you can see that first iteration of what you have shown, right? Supply chain visibility, the demand planning, the supply planning. So a lot of that is automated. And then obviously today we are asking what's their impact, either by source country or the tariff impact. And that comes as an input, right? So we can keep moving. So we have the foundation ready. We just need to source the data, the existing models up and running, and then start some tweaks if required. But you can up and running much, much faster.
That's great to hear. Thank you so much for that, Ganesh. Well, it looks like we're up at time now. This wraps up our webinar for today. I really want to take the time to thank our panelists, Al, Hector, Ganesh. If the audience is interested in learning more about ConverSight and the decision intelligences that we have to offer, go ahead and scan the QR code that's on the screen, or visit us at www.conversight.ai. And please stay connected by following ConverSight on social media. We have regular podcasts and webinars, so please stay tuned. And thanks again. Back over to you, Dave.
Thank you, Vlad. Again, just to reiterate that website that you can go to, ConverSight.ai. Again, ConverSight.ai. You can get a lot of more information of what we discussed today. You'll find on the website. Also, check out the resources tab on your console to see some of the goodies that we've placed here for you to look at and download. And we also would appreciate, too, if you complete the survey question that's on your console. Thanks for doing that in advance. Shortly after our live event, you'll receive an email reminder so you can access this presentation on demand. You can view it again, or you could share it with a colleague who might benefit also from the information that we talked about today. Once again, thanks to our panel. You've given us a very informative session. We'd also like to thank our viewers for being with us. We know your time is valuable, and we appreciate that you chose to spend part of your day watching this webinar. For all of us at DC Velocity and Supply Chain Exchange, I'm Dave Maloney. Have a great rest of the day.